Feedback by RQK. Chapter 11. Surrender. Spike hopped from ledge to ledge without any real regard for where he went. The landings didn't offer much ground. It took considerable effort to peek down, but even then he offered no such attention to it. Reaching the bottom was his only concern. Ledge after ledge met his feet as he spiraled down the deep hole in the cavern. The ambient light around several crystal walls gave him enough to see. Through exasperated breaths and clouded eyes, he looked down and saw the bottom. He saw a passageway at one end. Spike hit the ground running, heedless of several voices behind him. Heedless of the scattered bones, and heedless of the stale smell of saturated dirt in the air. As he ran down the tunnel, he clutched the letter in his hand even tighter. He felt every drop of blood boil under his scales as he ran faster than he ever done before. His frantic pants echoed throughout the cavern as he ran down the corridor. Even as the passage turned left and started on a long spiral downwards, Spike continued downward, certain that he drew close to the end. His heart beat faster and faster with each leg of the route. One time he chanced to look behind him to see 5 ponies racing after him. The 5 of them bore worried frowns as he tried to keep up. Their eyes remained fixed on him all the way. He even thought of explaining anything to them. Spike thought only about one particular task. I had to get there! I had to get there! The path took another left, and then Spike saw it. 2 large and ornate doors rose up in front of him. Stone swirls ran up and down the height of it, creating intricate pictures of beings he could not recognize. In the middle where each door met, a small and perfectly hemispherical crater dug into the gray rock. He ran a short distance to the doorway, where he found 2 items on the ground. For a moment, Spike paused to consider them. A clear and pristine ball made out of crystal sat on the ground before the doors, to which he failed to register the picture of the Canterlot Tower within. The second item drew his attention instead. A single dusty brown cloak sat on a charred spot on the ground behind it. Spike shuddered as he recognized the cloak as the one hung in Twilight's old abode. The door let off a short metallic shriek, as light coursed through several previously invisible ley lines within the rock. And then, without a loud groan, the stones parted and the door slid sideways into hideaways in the wall. Spike didn't wait for them. As soon as enough space presented himself, he slid through the opening between the doors. A large and hemispherical room greeted him. A red glow emanated out the sigils lining the walls. Even the very air felt like an angry, hot. Several rings adorned with several symbols, each as unique as the next, wove around something blue in the center. Spike looked up and realized it was a towering pillar of crystal. The structure likened itself to a tree, whose roots spread across the room and stretched through the walls. Magnitudes of branches near the top of the crystal tree headed out across the dome. Spike saw something in the center of the pillar and stopped. He narrowed his eyes as he discerned it before all breath rushed from his lungs. His knees then gave way and he fell to the floor. Is that? Rainbow Dash exclaimed as she landed behind him. The other 4 rushed up and stumbled to a halt as well. What in the? Verity gasped. Spike swelled up against his will. He could not tear his eyes away from the crystal structure. He grasped the paper in his hand tighter than before. As the first drops fell down his face, he let out a long wheeze. Oh, Twilight. Oh. The 5 ponies behind him looked to where his eyes fixed themselves upon. One by one, they screamed and shouted and slung profanities. Primal forces and mannerisms burst forth from the very depths of their souls into sight. But all the same, eventually the 5 of them devolving into holding each other and crying in one voice. In the very heart of the pillar, encased deep within the crystal, rested a solitary lavender unicorn horn. Pristine but unattached, without a body to call its own. Twilight Sparkle scanned the grounds outside the window, taking stock of anything and everything that happened to move. In the darkness of the new night sky, only a few stray lights on the ground, and even fewer in the air moved about. The telltale signs of the Luna Guard as they patrolled. The princess then turned, and as he pressed the desk, she levitated the crystal ball over to her. 5 ponies gathered around the crystal ball in order to watch Twilight as she went about. As the mare and the ball disappeared down the stairs, Applejack placed her hoof on the ball in order to swallow that mare down. Twilight sighed deeply as she reached the bottom. She took one glance around the room, taking pauses at several things within. She eyed the bed on which she had slept, the counter where she prepared her meals, the freshly watered plants around the room. A frown deepened with each item that she passed over. For a moment, Twilight glanced over at the hanger, in which a brown hooded cloak hung at the ready. With a roll of her eyes and a shake of her head, Twilight continued down without it. The mayor approached the blue double doors that spelled the tower exit. "This is it, every pony. Time for me to go." The torrential downpour outside the tower seemed to, almost in response to those words, beat harder against the glass as it grew in magnitude, all topped off with the shaking boom of thunder. "At least take us with you, dear," Verity croaked. "Yes," Fireside agreed. Twilight glanced over towards her crystal ball and nodded. "Okay, I will." The mayor stepped forward and placed her hooves on the door handles. With a creak, the doors parted and Twilight stepped outside. The candlelight air greeted her with a low whistle as it gently caressed her hair. Twilight drank it in for several moments as the smallest inkling of a smile etched itself across her muzzle. As their hearts pounded in unison, the five sucked in a collective breath. A thunderclap shook the tower. Twilight flapped her wings and took to the air. The unicorn soared high into the sky, higher than the highest tip of the castle. She glanced down at the brilliant city below, letting her eyes across the crisscross of lights. Some buildings shone under the light of the moon. Twilight drew higher and higher, until she flew well above to what the night patrols flew out. Twilight drew toward the mountain, taking an occasional glance at one of the towers where she spied Luna, perched in front of a telescope, as she looked down the valley toward the rest of Equestria. The Night Princess didn't seem to know that Twilight was even there. Applejack worked to keep the ball's view on Twilight. Every so often she made a correction to the course, based on her own thoughts, and contained little prediction by the other four. But the outcore within the ball outpaced him. The more Applejack moved toward the cave entrance instead. Eventually Twilight landed on a ledge well above the city. She took a better look at the city before casting a glance at the castle. Her ledge sat level with Celestia's tower. Her eyes remained on it until she turned away. Twilight passed by several hut-like structures, mounds of dirt and sand as she walked toward the mountainside. The occasional table and set of tools lay around the outskirts of the site. She paid them no mind. Spike walked up at that moment. "Where is he now?" the dragon asked. Pygmea Diane Pie sighed. "Twilight's at the entrance now." Spike started across his arms. "Well, I guess we have time, still." Rainbow Dash shook her head. "And we still can't do anything," she said. Twilight looked up at the mountain and met her, and then to the mouth of the cave entrance swallowed her whole. Twilight cantered on, heedless of the spent torches attached to each side of the tunnel. "I remember," Twilight began, turning her gaze towards the crystal ball as he levitated beside her. "I remember the first time Cadence and I got out of these caves. All this time I'd never even known the caves were here. Shows how little I got out when I lived in Canterlot. And then around the time the Crystal Empire appeared, that's when they expanded mining operations here." The six listened in silence. Twilight sighed. "And you girls know the rest. I've been interested in this place ever since." Twilight rounded a bend in the cavern before it opened up to a large chamber. Several pillars of rock held the spacious room together, as piles of spent rocks and the occasional stuck shovel and pickaxe littered the floor. Several smaller tunnels ran like tributaries on a stream. Twilight crossed the room to one tunnel in particular, and it appeared like it sloped downward and disappeared into it. As Twilight continued onwards, her expression grew somber. "I wonder," she thought aloud, "how many others over the years thought like me, gone down there, and have had to do the same thing I'm about to do." With each passing step, the walls lost their rounded appearance in favor of a more jagged path. Eventually the dirt gave way to the walls of complete crystal. Smooth surfaces of all different shades of color fit together like a puzzle piece. Every piece lit off a soft and almost intangible glow that, when put together, lit the cavern before her. Twilight descended down and made no sign of turning back. Sunset wiped her brow as she flipped the chalkboard over. She flared her horn again and siphoned through the pair of bug chalk pieces on the floor in front of the board and used it to draw a new equation. The numbers practically flew off her hoof. It did calculations themselves. But the more and more she wrote, the more she recognized the series of numbers. Again. Sunset dug her head into the journal to contain all of the work she had done over the past few days again. With a frustrated groan, she wound up to throw the chalk against the board. Again. The torrential rain against the windows gave an extra battering at the moment, prompting Sunset to whirl around before she could follow through. The mare felt the pounding heart in her chest before she glanced up and down the windows, knowing the sheets of water that cascaded down their sides. Calm down, Sunset. Just stay calm! She thought to herself. She used her hoof to push out a long stream of breath, found the beating in her chest subside. As the storm outside eased up, but remained violent all the same, she drew back to the chalkboard in front of her, guided the chalk down into a resting position. The writing on the board still glared back at her, to which Sunset returned an unsatisfied scowl. She lifted the eraser off the floor and wiped the whole side clean, before flipping the board over and erasing the other side as well. Sunset fell into her haunches with a sigh, and buried herself within the book again. Sunset skipped through several pages as she tried to find something unsolved, some sort of key that would allow everything else to fit together. There's gotta be something that I missed, she eternally screamed. There has to be! There has to! Pygmalion stared out of the balcony as the rain bounced against the magical bubble just past it. Her eyes drew towards the sky as lightning flashed through the clouds, causing them to flicker between bright and dim. As her eyes drew briefly, revealed the contours, she counted the seconds in her mind, counting down until the moment. Somewhere, somehow, days had turned into minutes. How in the wide world did we end up like this? She thought. Then why don't we have Sunset go back in time again? A voice behind her cried. Pygmalion turned to see Rainbow Dash floating above her friends in a bellowing posture. Spike threw his hands in the air. I already told you she can't! Only once in a lifetime, remember? She already used it! I so want to make a joke about the finale, but I can't. Because I love this story too much. And I don't want to make too many jokes during a fanfic I've been enjoying so much. What if Rarity used the spell? Applejack asked as she adjusted her hat. Rarity shook her head. I'm not nearly that capable, darling. Like, let's just say it's Princess Celestia or Princess Luna. I bet they'd be able to do it. Or Cadence, or Moon Dancer. Somebody else you're forgetting. Colgate. Unicorn. Powerful. A little light in her mane. You're right, Trixie. We should ask Lyra. Trixie, put down the hammer. Down! Pygmalion brushed herself off the railing. But, she said, turning around. What would they do? The gift of them turned into disgusted snarls. The pink plane slipped down the floor. It's not like they know how to fix this. Even if they went back in time and tried to stop Twilight, how could they undo what that mean Speedy Pants thing was just doing to her? Several of them reeled, letting out distressed groans. Spike picked a speck of dirt off his arm and flung it across the room. Besides, it's not like they could help her. She's in an alternate world. Once grabbed a hold of her mane and held it close. But what about our Twilight? If there's some world above us that's 9 days to the future, couldn't they have helped her? Rainbow Dash threw her hose in the air. Yeah! You saw how it was! They, she pointed to the ball, tried to come to the tower just like we did. So maybe there's another us that talked just like we did now. Yeah! Spike roared. And guess what? Our Twilight's dead! My Twilight! The storm outside whipped the tower in a surge of downpour, a crack of thunder. But what about this? Rarity asked. She's still there. Applejack swallowed. Well, it's true. But how are we going to do it? Don't you know? It's out of our hopes! Pickamia exclaimed. How much time do we have? Rainbow snatched the ball up and landed in the middle of them. She shot the ball forward until the feud saw Twilight again. Hey, Twilight! Where are you at? Twilight approached the edge of a very large crevice and peered over the ledge into a bottomless whiteness below. The alicorn whimpered once, an intensely visible surge through her body, as he looked up and spied the end of a mining cart rail, jutting over the far end of the expanse. Cadence had to fly us out over on our way out, Twilight said. She turned her attention to the hole in front of her as well. The chamber is down this chasm. Oh, what? She's nearly there, Verity hissed. A clap of thunder drowned out Rainbow Dash's swear. We really need more time, Pickamia thought. Applejack hurled her hat across the room with a frustrated yell, then galloped up the stairs with a determined look on her face. Pickamia asked no questions and bolted after her. She chased Applejack as he oared the earth pony near missed sunset, and he arrived in front of the study's sprawling window. Son pony! I need a pony! Applejack cried. Are you watching up there? Say something, please! Pickamia joined her friend at the window. We need help! We need help! She yelled, trying to find any way of a visible face looking down on him. Please! For lion's sakes! The rivers of spent rain on the head of them continued to wash down outside the glass. We'll take whatever! Pickamia cried. Give us a magic spell! Give us more time! We'll take it! Sunset Simmer crept up behind him and peered upwards to the glass as well. A piece of chalk still udded in her magical aura. The other four appeared at the top of the stairs at that moment and stood there with sad, worried expressions. Hold on! I know y'all can hear us! Alzette cried. Say something! Say anything! Answer me already! Pickamia fell and pinched her knee against herself. Pinch knee? That means... Applejack stamped her hoof against the floor. I did go all the way across the world just for you to not talk! So come on already! Talk to us, you... Her... The sky outside lit up as a bolt of light streaked down across the window. It reached out with its electric tendrils and drew down the length of the window's metal bracings as it brushed past, sending small sparks coursing through the framework. In the same instant the bolt reached the ground, and the loudest boom shook the tower to its very foundation. The glass rattled, the floor shook, and dust fell from the ceiling. Several of them screamed, and peeked and ducked, and plugged their ears in response. Then in the moments following, shakily rose to their hose again. All except Fluttershy, who remained petrified on the floor. Pickamia looked back at the crystal ball and spiced grass. Twilight walked down with a downward spiral around the chasm. Every slow and calculated step took her a foot deeper into the mountain and closer to the door. Every so often the mare would duck under a crystal as it jutted out along the wall. Other times the ledge cut out, forcing her to make a short leap across. All the while Twilight's crystal ball flowed closely behind her. Spying a shortcut, Twilight spread her wings and leapt across the gap, skipping 2 full revolutions down the spiral. But Twilight slammed into the wall as she landed, and her host slipped, saved only by the fact that her body refused to slide off the ledge as well. Pickamia felt whatever color remained in her face drain away. Wait, she thought. Rainbow Dash let out a frustrated scream before she stormed down the stairs in a huff. Twilight struggled to climb over her hose again. She nearly made it before her legs gave way under her, only for her to try again without missing a beat. Once upright again, Twilight stepped forward like nothing had happened. Twilight still journeyed to her death, and the crystal ball remained silent. Pickamia collapsed on the floor. I... Spike held the crystal ball close. He held it so close that no pony could have wrested from him. The dragon kept his eyes glued to the inside of the crystal ball. He ignored the rain against the windows. He ignored the scratches of sunset chalk. For the only thing he wanted to do was to watch Twilight. Twilight Sparkle stalked forward at a sluggish pace. The long path before her curved downward in an uncomfortably wide arc. Every bit of the wall looked the same, and in the low light, the caverns, there was no way to tell if it would end soon. But Spike knew better. He knew it would end soon. He knew it would all end soon. A yellow hoof landed on the ball.
Twilight, there has to be another way.
Fluttershy said.
Please.
We've been over this, Fluttershy, Twilight said. There is no other way. There never was.
That can't be true.
Darling, Verity said, touching her own hoof to the ball.
You can't. You simply can't.
I can. I have to, Twilight replied. The mayor looked further down into the cavern and frowned. It can't be much farther now. Fluttershy fought back tears, and for a moment managed to swallow what had worked up from the pit of her chest.
Don't go, Twilight. Don't go. You can still go back and get us.
Spike bit his lip, wishing he had something to say. Anything to turn the conversation, and perhaps the mayor inside the ball, around. It's going to try and surface soon, Twilight coldly replied. Too late to turn back.
No!
The Pegasus cried. It's too late.
Oh. Twilight.
Fluttershy buried into Verity and let off another sob. Then another. The mare burst into a maelstrom of choked cries and moans as she pressed herself deeper into her friend, especially as Verity wrapped a hoof around her. Applejack and Picamina, both of whom lay pressed against the room's giant window, glanced over. Neither said a word nor gave the slightest change in expression, and in short order they returned mindlessly to watching the storm outside. Spike ground his teeth together. First those two, and Rainbow Dash. Now Fluttershy had succumbed. Verity's cheeks turned a bright red and growled, Then! I am not ready to give up on you, Twilight Sparkle! Twilight shook her head and continued to trot onwards. Verity searched about and finally settled on the dragon. Spiky Wikey, tell her! Tell her what? Spike asked. Something! Surely you must have something! Spike grimaced. Don't ask me, he said, and pointing to Sunset. She's the one with all the things. Sunset talked more numbers on her board. Her chalk danced across the board, and with each stroke, a hair on her already missing mane popped out of place. Verity straightened herself. Sunset! She shouted. Sunset dug chalk into the board too much, and the nibble of a piece shattered against a shower of dust. The mayor looked over with wide eyes, just as he emerged from a daze. Surely you'll have something, Verity asked. Anything! Verity, Sunset said.
Please,
what the sake of Celestia, tell me you have something on that board of yours. Anything at all! Sunset was uncertain where to keep her eyes. She went to the board, to Rarity, to the board again. She tried to speak a couple of times, but the words fell short. Sunset, Spike tried. The mayor shivered. She tried. She went to every nook and cranny of the board, but with each part her color grew paler. For a long time Sunset stared at her work, regarding every number and every symbol. The one moment she looked to them again, her eyes sparkled in a plea for forgiveness. The next moment, Sunset dropped the chalk entirely. I don't have anything, Sunset whimpered. Spike gulped. No, Sunset, don't. Sunset caved. The mare fell face first to the floor, shielding herself with her forelegs. Sunset made no more sounds and made no indication she would move from that spot. Verity flared her nostrils. Oh no, 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 no! Absolutely not! She pointed an angry hoof at Sunset. You'll stand right back up, right now! Sunset did not burst. You will stand up, Spike! The dragon averted his gaze out of shame. Verity recoiled. She stared into the ball for a few moments as the mare inside it continued on. Her teeth clattered as the words tried to form. Where? Verity cried as he sniffled.
Already here. Well, already here.
Twilight tripped and fell into the dirt below her feet, kicking up dust and dirt. She coughed several times as she got to her hooves, one hoof at a time. She massaged her head and tried to stretch the rest of her body, but the painful screams she uttered afterwards told of how well that would have worked.
Oh, stars!
Verity exclaimed. Twilight! I'm sorry! I'm so sorry! Spike frowned, but nonetheless continued to think the ball's view forward. That moment, Twilight rounded the corner. A large double door greeted her. The ornate stone doors towered over her, and Twilight stopped to admire the edged pistons on their front. But once that was done, Twilight allowed a shade of color to drain from her already pale coat. "I'm here," she announced.
Oh, stars! I can't look!
Rarity quivered. She turned, just like the Pegasus sobbing to her side. Rarity sobbed as a Fluttershy in return. Rainbow Dash appeared at the head of the stairs. The Pegasus refused to enter the room, and instead elected to rest against the banister with a sorrowful glare. Her scowl alone held back everything else. This was it. The one moment he never thought he would see happen. Even with the knowledge that it had taken place 9 days ago, Spike felt blindsided. Twilight was about to die. Spike glowered at it all. Twilight had died. Twilight was dead. Dead. Died. Will die. Because this had happened 9 days ago. Because it had always happened 9 days ago. Several ley lines in the double doors in front of Twilight sparked to life. With a slow, wrenching creak, the doors parted, revealing the chamber beyond. The entryway turned red from the light it was bathed within. It was brighter than Spike remembered. "I have to let you go now," Twilight said. "Sometime within the next hour, the Nameless will make its attempt. I have to concentrate. I just want you to know that I am so grateful that I could spend these last few days with all of you. I am so grateful that I got the chance. There's no other way I would have wanted to do it," Twilight blessed. "And I just hope you don't remember me as a bad friend." "Never!" Spike huffed. She held up her crystal ball and examined it. "Goodness. I should have spent more time learning how to use this thing. Maybe I should have been able to see you all myself." Twilight shook her head. "But now I have to go. I'm going to leave the ball outside the door." She looked up with pleading eyes. "Okay?" Spike balled his fist. The cycle was complete. Twilight's crystal ball in front of the floor, in its place for them to find and start the cycle anew. No cloak, but what did that matter? Twilight was lost either way. Because it didn't matter. They would always lose Twilight. Because there was no escaping is, was, will be. Spike looked at the others. Alistair and Peek and Mina remained glued to the windows, but each had an eye in its direction. Rainbow Dash remained in the stairwell, but now turned away out of disgust. Rarity and Fluttershy remained in a heap on the floor, trying to stifle their croaks and wheezes. Sunset remained curled up on the floor. She made no attempt to even open her eyes and see what was happening. Her ears lay frozen at the top of her head, as if blocking out the sound, like she was gone, when she had sat down. Spike clutched the ball tighter than he ever had before. A moment later, his knees gave out, and he fell to the floor. Heartbeat after heartbeat ticked by, and none of them did anything to lessen the weight in his chest. Spike sucked in his breath. He used one of his hands to push it back out. "Okay, Twilight. I understand. Go save the world. But Twilight, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to be right here until it's done." The smallest inkling of a smile appeared on Twilight's muzzle. "Spike. Okay?" Twilight considered those words for many long moments. "You'll be there?" she asked. Spike nodded. "Always." Twilight held her head up and nodded. She gently laid the crystal ball down to rest the ground beside her. "Okay." Twilight said and took a deep breath. "I am ready to die." A tear fell down her face before she broke into a smile. "Goodbye, every pony." Spike said nothing. Twilight stepped forward. Every clap of her hooves echoed throughout the cavern, echoed throughout the tower. A slow and deliberate pace as Twilight crossed the threshold. Every last step lasted for eternity. With every step, Twilight looked farther forward. Crystal behind her could only watch. A sweet thunderclap boomed outside, but even when paired with the rain, it failed to silence the hoofsteps from the ball. The double door jerked with a loud groan and slid toward each other. The mayor in his chamber paid the door no mind as he trod toward the center of the chamber. Spike closed his eyes. At that moment, by his reckoning, the doors on the life of Twilight Sparkle shut tight with a resounding thud. Each one echoed into eternity.